How do you know there's a God? Good question. I don't know how many times I've been asked this question by believers and non-believers alike. How do you know? Okay, actually this is a really frustrating question because it presupposes a modern cultural paradigm that is more or less anti-intellectual while presenting itself to be reasonable. There is a rather misguided idea that science is all the answers and that science will explain everything, and whatever science doesn't understand right now, just give it time. It'll have the answers at some point in the more than likely near future. However, this is just bad thinking. As many scientists and philosophers have pointed out in the past, science doesn't prove anything. Science can't prove anything. Science isn't a person or an entity that is able to process information and formulate thought or use reason. Rather, science is defined as the human effort to understand or to understand better the history of the natural world and how the natural world works, with observable physical evidence as the basis of that understanding. In other words, science is a method or a skill of how to get better information. Now, science doesn't tell you how to interpret the information or what to do with it once you have it. The word science in its Latin origin merely means knowledge. There are, in fact, many things scientific methods can't explain, especially anything beyond the five senses, such as morality, ethics, meaning, value, and purpose. The minute we step outside the realm of the five senses, we enter into a realm that science is unfamiliar with, metascience, or what we know beyond our empirical knowledge. Science can never explain to us the difference between right and wrong, because science doesn't do anything. People who have adopted certain systems and methods for acquiring and testing information are called scientists, and it is the scientists who provide the context for what they've scienced. So when someone asks you, how do you know there's a God, chances are they're not talking about your personal experiences with God, or how you intuitively know that there's a God, or how it's reasonable to believe such a thing as a God exists. Rather, they're wanting stone-cold evidence that is verifiable, that there is without a doubt that unquestionably there is a God. Here's the problem. Science can't answer that. In fact, some scientists have gone on to denounce anything existing other than the physical or natural world, and anything that supposedly exists beyond the five senses isn't real. However, this isn't science, it's philosophy. Science doesn't dictate how science is interpreted, and that's where a person's worldview comes into play. When an atheist is asked, how do you know there's not a God, their response is generally, because nothing exists outside of nature. But that just begs the question, how do they know that? How do they know there's nothing outside the physical reality and that nature is all that there is? If they know this, then that means they acquired this information through a scientific method, which are all based on observation. So how do they know that something doesn't exist if they haven't observed it not existing? Yes. Now that may seem fallacious, but it's actually not. The absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Science cannot prove anything. That's not what it does. And scientists, once they step outside of hypothesizing about the physical realm into speculation of the metaphysical realm, well, empiricism just doesn't seem to help them out, especially if they've rejected the reality of a metaphysical reality on the basis of they don't want there to be one. Now, before you start thinking that I'm anti-science, know that I'm not. The scientific method and the knowledge that men and women have gained in their various scientific fields have been some of the most important discoveries in human history. I take medicine. Science is important, but it's not the key that opens every locked door. And anyone who thinks that it can is ultimately lying to themselves. Over the next few videos, we'll be exploring why belief in God makes sense. So the next time someone asks you, how do you know God exists, you can be prepared to answer their questions respectfully and kindly. This is Taylor Drake with Timothy Ministries at New Horizons Ministries. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and our website for more information. Blessings.